Hey everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today is a very special day on Dessert Person. We are celebrating our channel, our millionth subscriber. Thank you so much to everyone. It's so much fun doing this channel and having all of you tune in. So to celebrate, I am making the cover recipe of Dessert Person.
What if we don't hit 1 million?
What if we don't hit 1 million? I'll do a different one for safety. We're 900K plus. Close enough?
I'll take close enough.
Okay, great. Can you round up to 1 million? We got 1 million. All I'm saying is let's get to 1 million so I can get another plaque from YouTube. They send it to you. Would love if we got there by the time this episode airs so we can say that we're celebrating 1 million subscribers, but whatever. Point is, mostly I'm excited to make this cake. It is the cover shot of Dessert Person. I picked it for the cover because it feels like an approachable recipe, but it's also so beautiful and it celebrates seasonal fruit. So it checks all the boxes of the kind of baking that I love to do. It's also an olive oil cake, which I think is a really interesting and delicious type of cake to make. So I'm gonna show you how to put it together. We're gonna get started. Hey friends and fellow dessert people, it's Claire Saffitz here. Now before we get into this week's episode, I have a really special announcement. I'm so excited to share with you the cover of my new book. It's called What's for Dessert, and the book features over 100 different recipes for every kind of dessert, from chilled and frozen dessert to stovetop desserts like flambés to soufflés and every other kind of dessert made in the oven. The recipes are classic and simple, and I think you're really gonna love it. It is out November 8th, but to pre-order your copy, check out the link below in the description. And I hope you do that. I hope you check it out. I hope you pre-order it. And thank you, and back to the episode. When I grew up in the supermarket, there was just orange. It was just an orange, like what I guess is a navel orange. And now at the grocery store in winter, I mean, we're in sort of later stages of winter in New York City. There are so many kinds of citrus. For example, one of my favorites, sumo citrus, which are so delicious. I love them so much. It makes winter a little more tolerable. And now you see blood oranges almost like year-round. This particular type of blood orange has a rosy red color to its skin. And then the color inside varies from looking like a regular orange to being kind of ruby red to even like super almost dark purple. So you kind of never know what you're going to get on the inside. And I actually love when I get blood oranges of different colors because it creates this ombre kind of tonal surface to the cake. So pretty. Ingredients. This is an olive oil cake. It is dairy free. So if there's anyone in your household or friends or family that stays away from dairy, this is a great recipe for them. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I have cake flour. That's important. I want a really light crumb for this cake. Granulated sugar, semolina flour, which gives great flavor to the cake. Baking powder, kosher salt, olive oil, use extra virgin, 3 large eggs, 3 tablespoons of Grand Marnier. If you don't want to use something with alcohol, you could use apple juice. I mean, it would be great to use orange juice, but that will throw off the leavening a little bit because it's acidic. So apple juice is a better sub. You could also use milk if you don't mind adding a little bit of dairy. Vanilla extract, and then of course blood oranges. Special equipment. I'm gonna use a stand mixer. You could use a hand mixer. And I have a 10-inch springform pan. So a springform pan is really great for an upside down cake because it just helps you guarantee that when you turn the cake out, you have a really smooth surface with, no parts of the surface come off in the pan. The name Blood Orange, it's like good name or bad name?
Is it your favorite band?
Is Blood Orange a band?
Okay.
Before I prepare my pan, I want to preheat my oven. I made sure that I have an oven rack in the center of the oven. This is going to go to 350. And I have my 10-inch springform pan here. If you only have a 9-inch, you can do it in a 9-inch. Note that you'll need fewer orange slices to cover the surface, and you might not be able to pour in all the batter. The first thing I want to do is just brush a little bit of olive oil across the bottom and up the sides of the pan. Now I'm going to put parchment in here, and that parchment is going to ensure that when I turn the cake out that I don't have any issues maintaining the flat layer of slices. So mostly I'm oiling the pan on the bottom so that the parchment sticks. That's really the purpose. And then of course across the sides. So now you're going to line the bottom with a round of parchment. I used to almost always trace it, but now I kind of like to use a different technique, which is I'm just folding it into like progressively smaller triangles with the point always on the same side. And then I eyeball the center of the pan. Then I see where the parchment hits the edge, and that's where I'm going to cut. It's not that round. Oh well, sometimes you have to make some adjustments. It's fine. Take your time to smooth the parchment really well into the bottom. I just want to eliminate air bubbles. Now I'm going to do another really thin layer of oil along the parchment. This can go off to the side. When we make this cake, we start by creating this kind of slurry, which is a mixture of sugar and blood orange juice. And that goes into the very bottom of the pan that we just covered in parchment and a little bit of oil. What happens is that mixture of orange juice and sugar kind of permeates the slices of blood orange as the cake bakes, and it turns the pith, which is that kind of bitter white part between the very skin or zest of the orange and the flesh, into something translucent and like less bitter and more palatable and just edible overall. So the key here is really slicing the blood oranges thinly enough that the entire thing has the opportunity in the oven to really absorb those sugars and juices. I'm going to take the blood orange, and I refer to the parts of the fruit as like, it says in the top and bottom, I think of like North Pole and South Pole. So you're going to start by slicing off one of the poles. But what you want to do is expose the layer of fruit inside. And then you are going to just thinly slice it into rounds. And I basically slice it as thin as possible, but you don't want to go really thicker than 1/8 of an inch. So it's important to use a sharp knife here and just continue to slice through the thickest part of the orange. So if you see any seeds, go ahead and take those out. These are not thin-skinned blood oranges at all. It's actually a very thick skin. It's okay though. All the more reason to cut it as thinly as possible. So once you get to the end, it becomes a lot harder to then slice even rounds when you only have this much of the fruit left. So go ahead and squeeze that into a bowl, because we're going to use 2 tablespoons of juice to make this slurry mixture with some sugar in the bottom. So this is a nice slice. You can see as I cut through, the juices already started to kind of penetrate the pith, because we want that part to soften, become translucent, sweeten up a little bit. This looks good. You don't really want it much thicker than this if you can manage. So in this bowl, I have 1/3 cup of sugar, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of juice. I just love this color. So then this just gets whisked together. You don't want to really dissolve all the sugar. You just want to make this kind of thick mixture. So this goes into the bottom of the pan. So here's what's going to happen. The sugar in this mixture is going to draw the juices out of the slices. And then the juice that's already in here is going to give off its color, and it's going to kind of like dye and stain the white pithy areas of the fruit red. So that's what gives this cake an almost like sort of jewel-like color. I'm going to start with a nice slice. I'm going to place it off to one side, right against the very edge. And then I'm going to overlap my slices almost by half. And then I just continue to lay down slices, overlapping basically that same amount, kind of in rows, but also kind of working all the way around from one side of the pan to the other. If you come across any seeds, pull those out. I have more fruit. I didn't slice all of it. I might have to cut a couple more slices. We'll see. It's good to have a little bit of extra to work with. So I have the entire bottom of the pan covered. It looks already pretty on this side, but it's going to look better on the opposite side when I flip it over. Now, one thing that can happen with this cake is that during baking, some of that batter can kind of migrate underneath the slices. It doesn't really bother me when that happens, but of course you want to see as much of the fruit as possible. So you can kind of go ahead and press down a little bit on the slices. Try to get them in a little bit of a flatter layer if possible. In the photo where it's like super just full coverage of fruit, I have to admit we did scrape a little bit of areas of cake off the top and then gave them a little shine with some blood orange juice, but that's the magic of food styling. I do have one blood orange left over because I'm going to zest this, so I'm going to get these off to the side. When you have, like, I have all these little odds and ends, I'm going to save them because I can just eat it as a snack. I can also juice it. Now, olive oil is liquid at room temperature, so it cannot be creamed with sugar the way that butter can be. So we use a slightly different mixing method with an olive oil cake. I like to start by whipping the eggs and the sugar together. That is a means of working air into the cake because with an oil-based cake, there can be a tendency for it to be a little more dense. Now, the benefits of olive oil cake is that the fat being liquid at room temperature means that it keeps really, really well. It does not dry out. You can keep it at room temp, especially because there's no dairy in here, and the cake gets better over time. So I love an olive oil cake, but we use a stand mixer with the whisk so that we can try to aerate it as much as possible in the beginning. That being said, we're going to start the way most recipes start, which is I'm going to combine the dry ingredients. I have 1 1/3 cups cake flour, then semolina flour. Semolina is a particular kind of wheat. It is what you'll often see like pasta made from semolina. Wonderful flavor. It's like super nutty. I love, love, love baking with semolina. Then I have 2 teaspoons of baking powder, kosher salt, and that's it. So whisk this together. Cake flour can sometimes be a little bit lumpy, so whisking will help to work those out. Here I have my wet ingredients. It's not a long list. I'm using Grand Marnier. It is an orange flavored cognac-based spirit that is also made with orange peel, and it's like sweetened a little bit. I don't really know what I call it. What is it? Is it liqueur? A liquor? It's Grand Marnier. It makes a very fancy and delicious margarita in place of triple sec. So I'm going to mix this with, in this case, vanilla extract. The recipe calls for orange blossom water or vanilla. I thought I had orange blossom water. Turns out I do not. Orange blossom water is like, it's sort of an extraction of orange blossoms, and it's so fragrant. It's really powerful. So if you have it, it really does perfume the entire cake, and it's wonderful. I don't have it though, so I'm using vanilla. Just a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then a tablespoon of orange zest. I might not get a full tablespoon out of this, in which case I can supplement with lemon zest. A little lemon will bring some additional brightness. I'm just taking off the zest, which is the orange part. One of the reasons I love using citrus in all recipes is because, they're unique among fruits in that they have, more than anything else, this combination of bitter, sour, and sweet. And those are all really important flavors in baking. I'm going to add a little lemon zest to this. I'm going off script from the recipe a little bit. In cake making, like, liquid is an important ingredient, but you can add too much liquid to a cake. And not only that, but when you add citrus juice, there's acid in there, and the acid can throw off the leavening. It can weaken the structure of the cake. So if you want to add citrus flavor to a cake, your best bet is to do it through zest, not through juice. Tablespoon, more or less, into the liquid ingredients.
Sugar is a wet ingredient.
It certainly is.
Are some wet ingredients wetter than others?
No.
Here we have our stand mixer. I'm going to start with the whisk attachment, and that is because anytime we want to work air into any ingredients, we use the whisk for that beating action. I'm going to crack in my eggs. I have 3 large eggs. So whole eggs. I'm not separating the yolks and the whites. Whole eggs and sugar will whip. Now I have my remaining 1 cup of sugar. That's going to go in. I'm going to turn this on. So start it on low speed, just to get the eggs broken up and to incorporate the sugar. Okay, so I'm going to increase this slowly to like medium, high, or high. And the idea is that the eggs are going to lighten up, they're going to incorporate air, whip, and it's going to become pale and thick, and we're looking for what's called a ribbon. So when I raise up the whisk, the mixture will fall back onto itself and kind of layer onto the surface before it settles, making this kind of ribbon shape. So we're going to look for that. It's going to take 4 or 5 minutes. They'll increase quite a bit in volume. Many minutes later, now we're at that ribbon stage. It's super pale. It's probably tripled in volume, and it's really thick. So when I lift up the mixer and the mixture falls off of the whisk, it falls onto itself before it settles onto the surface. I'm going to stream in the oil really slowly. I wanted to incorporate into the eggs and emulsify in, and it's going to look super smooth and even thicker. It's like a sweet mayonnaise, which sounds gross, but it's not. Okay, so the mixer on high. And don't pour it so that it hits the beater. You want to kind of pour it down the side of the bowl so that it slowly incorporates. You don't want to whip it around the sides of the bowl. all of the oil has been incorporated. I went really, really slow. You don't want to overwhelm the mixture with oil because then it could sort of separate and it becomes more liquid, and we want it to be thick and light and have some of that air still inside. So now we're ready to add our wet and dry ingredients. So this gets made at this point like any other cake. I'm going to alternate dry with wet, starting and ending with dry. So I'm going to go with on low speed because now we want to mix really slowly. About a third of the dry ingredients. And once most of that flour disappears, I'll add half of the wet. Then half of the remaining dry, or a third of the total. The remaining wet. And then the remaining dry. So once you see most of the flour disappear, go ahead and stop the mixer. And then I like to incorporate the last little bit by hand. And to me, that's just a great way to prevent overmixing. A bunch of the zest got kind of stuck on the beater, so go ahead and scrape that off. Just gonna fold it several times by hand with a flexible spatula. Make sure you scrape the sides, make sure you scrape the bottom, and this just ensures that it's evenly mixed. We got our base layer of blood orange. Our oven is preheated. I'm just going to gently pour the batter into the pan. You don't want to disturb the fruit, so pour slowly, kind of go from like one end to the other. Let it kind of cascade over it. So I like to get in every last bit. So this goes into my 350 oven. It's going to bake for 35 to 45. And we just want to see risen cake, golden brown surface. It'll be springy to the touch, and then the telltale sign, a cake tester or skewer comes out clean. The timer just went off, so that is, the cake has gone on the low end of the time range. It smells done and it looks done, so I'm just going to test it with my cake tester. Center is, might be a little underdone. Nope, came out clean. So the cake is done. I'm going to set it aside. It is going to cool for about 15 minutes in the pan. I want to unmold it while it's still like hot, but not straight from the oven hot. So it's going to cool for a little bit, and then we're going to unmold it and reveal our beautiful upside down layer. The cake is still hot, but it did have a chance to cool, and you can see that it pulled away from the sides of the pan a little bit. I think that I pulled this cake at like the second it was done. So it's not underdone, but it wasn't so kind of set to the point where like it's going to maintain that dome. So that dome settled a little bit, and it really has a nice flat surface, which I think is good. I have a feeling I could have baked it like 1 minute longer, but I don't want it to be overdone. So I'm just going to use my little offset spatula to cut around the cake. It did pull away from the side, but I want to really guarantee that it's not stuck anywhere. Pop this off. You can see there's like a little ruby red layer of crumbs at the bottom. That is our blood orange. I'm going to grab it from the sides and then just give it a gentle flip. So the point of unmolding the cake while it's still hot, or at least warm, is that we don't really want the sugars in the topping to like harden, because that is going to encourage them to stick. So I want to do this part slowly. I want to make sure that I'm underneath the parchment. If that's not the prettiest cake I've ever seen, then I don't know what is. So remember how I said sometimes a little bit of cake can slide underneath those slices? It did that very minimally here. It looks so beautiful, but I have some little areas of that. Just go in with, be like a paring knife, or I have my little offset spatula here. Just kind of wipe away a little bit of that cakey area and remove it from the slices. And then what you can also do is, if you have any syrupy, red juices left in the pan after you unmold it, you could paint them back over the surface of the cake. But I feel like this looks great, and I don't think I need to do a whole lot to it. Now we just need to let the cake cool. If you were serving this for company, or you like really wanted to recreate the cover, you can see how glossy this is. Some of that glossiness will go away as the cake fully cools and sets. So you could always shine it up with a little bit of like orange marmalade that you strained, or that kind of thing. So that's if you want to do a little bit of your own food styling at home. Blood oranges photograph unlike really anything else I've learned.
Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, but just not of late. Taking a break.
Well, welcome back.
Well, thanks. Oh, it looks so good. See how the cake takes ever so slight a dip in the center? This cake could have used 1 more minute in the oven. It's just like imperceptibly, well, I guess perceptibly, barely perceptibly underdone in the middle. But that just means there's like lots of moisture in there. It's going to taste really good. When the cake is warm is when you really get, I think, some of the olive oil flavors. And what I love about it is it just gets better as it sits. So upside down cakes, anything with fruit in it tends to improve with time. It doesn't dry out. And then the olive oil also really like improves the flavor as it goes on. So I'm going to eat a little slice. Okay, so the bottom, this very sort of thin, almost crunchy layer. So delightful. It's like a very perfumed cake. It has great aroma and like really complex flavor. I'm so glad I put this on the cover. I haven't made this in so long. Good job to myself. Love it. So good. I would say this is an oldie but a goodie, a perennial favorite. Blood oranges are kind of a wintertime treat, but you can find them year-round more and more. I think it's a great way to celebrate the channel and how long we've been doing this and bringing you episodes of Dessert Person from the book and beyond. Hopefully this means we got 1 million followers, but who could say? We're almost there, if not. I hope you try the cake. It is the cover star of Dessert Person, truly one of my favorites. So thank you for watching, and like and subscribe.